Okay, welcome to another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I say I'm excited about every one of these because I have such great guests, but this is one that is going to be really, really special. I have actor extraordinaire, and the list is long, but some of my favorites: The Natural, Uncle Buck, Funny Farm, The Money Pit, Punchline, Lean on Me, Born on the 4th of July, Goodfellas, The Bodyguard, and even TV shows like Hardball, which I watched Hardball. Not many
Oh,
did,
it was
but I
great.
did. I did, and also, a great guest appearance on The Office, and of course, everyone knows your character work on Dumb and Dumber. I have
Also, can I
Mike's.
throw in the TV credits so you don't think that I'm a complete dinosaur? Blacklist, Ray Donovan, and Shameless also go in there. So I know that sounds like a rude actor, but I just want to let you know. I just updated.
Yeah, no, you are all over the place, and you're in so many films from my life that, you appear on everything. You've just you're exactly. I told you off air, my daughter is a aspiring actress. She really loves musical theater is her passion.
Oh
I've
man,
seen more musicals than I ever thought in my life over the last 3 or 4 years.
that's how I met my wife. By the way, I'll tell you that later.
Oh, yeah? Well, tell me now, what happened?
Well, okay, I will tell you that. For all those you out there didn't hear, we were talking before it, and he's been so wonderful about saying, "Hey, um, we'll just take it where it goes," which I like. But the problem with me is I'm like a Macy's Day float. You're gonna have to reel me in every now and then. I'll people laugh about how I start a conversation and I go off, and if someone interrupts me, I don't mean you. I mean I'm not an interview or whatever. But if someone goes, "Hey, when was that?" I go, "I can't remember what was I talking about?" And I remember Nathan Lane got me in the Broadway show The Odd Couple when Brad Garrett just wanted to do a few months and he moved on, and Nathan got me in it. And one of the guys, my friend Rob Bartlett, used to say he would do Mike Starr's conversation. He'll start telling someone that he winds up in a few different countries and some very interesting, strange people, and say, "Yeah, and then we were on a snowmobile, and then we did this and that, whatever." I start yapping, so I thanks to my brother, who the actor Starr, who was a pro football player in the States and Canada,
Mhm.
um, I had seen I was probably your, daughter's age now is what, 14, 15.
Yeah, 14.
So,
Mhm.
they used to bring, I lived in a housing project that we said was some people would say housing project light, my friends would say, uh, um, or the Beverly Hills of the housing projects in Queens, whatever. No, it's great place, big working class area. People moved in the early '50s out of Manhattan and Brooklyn and the Bronx, and a lot of post World War II and Korean War people, veterans, this and that, and their families moved in, and they built these places. And the electricians union had one. Called Elecchest, and we had the city projects. And eventually, I would work with kids in the neighborhood, and we'd go through all the projects in the neighborhood. It was a great experience. But they brought Shakespeare in the Park. I don't know if you know what that is. That sounds stupid
Mhm.
to say, do you know? But I don't want to date myself. Joe Papp, if you know who he was, there's a great documentary on him. He was a tough character, and he brought theater to people. So he would have every summer, which they start Shakespeare in the Park, which people really, oh wow, that's a big, you're not going to get paid much, but everyone, all these stars want to do it and whatnot. And people like Christopher Walken, William Hurt, my friend Keith David would tell me great stories. And I came close on getting something once, but what they would do, they would bring it to the neighborhoods. And I was lucky enough to see Cleavon Little, from he had done this scuba doo, but from Blazing Saddles,
Mm.
and they did like a rock hammer. He walked through the audience talking to kids. Hey, did you ever read Shakespeare? And then he'd start doing all these speeches, and he'd walk around with a camera, and they would try to do contemporary. Sometimes I saw Roscoe Lee Brown um, do this play Volpone, and then I saw James Earl Jones do Shakespeare. Right,
Oh, wow.
so
Yeah.
I was like 14 or 15. I had wanted to act when I was telling you before, off camera, off whatever. Um, I wanted to. I was starting to get interested in when I'd watch things like On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando, and of course we grew up. my era grew up with 2 things, war movies, that's why I improvised, Martin Scorsese asked me to improvise, and that's why I put in the thing I called myself in Goodfellas the Commandant, because we grew up with, a lot of movies like Great Escape, Stalag 17, and, also cowboy movies. I finally got to do for the Ion Child, play a cowboy with an accent, but I was around all these old school stunt people, and I said, "Yeah, I know you New York guys, actors, we hear it all the time. You grew up with it, and it's like the biggest thrill." Grew up with Westerns. It's funny with the Westerns of the '50s and the '40s and then into the early mid-'60s. But I wanted to be an actor, but there I am sitting there watching live theater, and I'm going, "Wow." And I had, temporary, when I say temporary 10 years, that knocked me out of, I wanted to be following my brother's footsteps and be I went to this Catholic high school, boys' school, where, they were the top school, one year in the city in football. But when I was 10 or 11, I had rheumatic fever, and they thought I had something worse, and it took me a number of years to prove I was okay, and I eventually walked on in football, and, while I got a drama scholarship. But I started watching live theater, so in high school, I really wanted to play football. They said, "No, we can't clear you. You got this thing." I said, "No, I'm telling you, I'm okay." And I used to play in the street with the guys, that were on the team. They said, "Oh, it's, well, anyway, so I used to impersonate teachers, right? And I used to and do impersonate TV. I mean, I think George Carlin said one time something. He goes, "Well, I'm not playing music. I'm not playing sports. I'll be the class clown." But and this older well, I was like a sophomore and a senior, and we tried to do drama clubs and this and that, and I had one teacher that they considered strange, but and then they blocked him from doing it. We were doing, Man for All Seasons, and we're trying to do things, and he was a wonderful actor, he was the lead. I tried to do forensics and the debate club, and I don't know, I couldn't get into it. I'd wind myself looking at the window. I'd wind up looking at the window at the guys practicing football, but they were really talented people, and it's probably something I should have stuck with, but there was a fellow, Joe Cali, who was in Saturday Night Fever, among other things, and he
Mhm.
was our top guy, and, uh, this I can't remember the guy's name, but he said, "Listen, can you do me a favor? Everyone tells me you're funny and this and that or whatever." And we had some very funny people. Catholic Catholic high school is it somehow brought out a lot of with the extremes of it. Grammar school, it brings Irish Catholic humor and a lot of the humor from Jewish neighborhoods in the Lower East Side and Brooklyn influenced so much of this country. And when I got with Jim Carrey, I was just talking about the humor of pain and things like that,
Yes.
and life. And he told me some of the greatest stories and how hard he worked at doing things. And he really, he was very special. I learned so much from him and Jeff Daniels as well on Dumb and Dumber. But anyway, so I started watching stuff, and this guy came up to me and he said, "Can you do me a favor and do a pep rally?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Well," and I couldn't come up with, "Yeah, just come up with a character," and, the usual things like they'll show on Family Guy, you have to make fun of the other school or whatever nonsense and, and talk about your players. And I did probably most of this audience would not know who I'm talking about, the great Jack Benny,
Oh,
who,
yeah.
in the '50s and '40s, right? And I came out and imitated him, and I had these glasses, and I did whatever, not the best, and I the guy said, "Mike, I'm in this all-girls school." It was like, it's, uh, I'm doing this play, and there's a small part for this guy, Dr. Glass, in Carnival, and I'd like you to do it. So I don't know if this story is helpful at all, but it's good for teenagers. So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." It was, they used to call this school Snob Hill, and it was in an area of Jamaica Estates where, I guess the area where our president's from, this and that, and, um, you know, getting on any side of this story, it's just that was the area, and it was, Mary Lewis? And, it was so funny, again, there's these beautiful young ladies, but the nuns made them they were dancing girls in the show, this carnival, and they made them put straps across their back because there was too much skin showing. So there I am. I got this part as Dr. Glass, one of the suitors, of course, the loser, and which I always knew when I made commercials. Eventually, if I was Brand X and the loser, it was going to run. If I was the
Right.
spokesman, I said, "That's it, it's not getting no, Hellman's mayonnaise, I'm with my mom. Yeah, that's not running. Fix your teeth." So, uh, I I did this show and I played this guy, and I remember it was my first improvisation ever. I had to hold a rabbit, which got a laugh. I was Dr. Glass, one of the suitors, and the senior, I think McCaffrey, some what a great guy. He started me off, and he is the hero, and he said, "That's what I needed." I had to sing the woman, and I had to come out and say, "My that's my carriage out there, not the one with 2 horses, the one," and my line was simply, "The one with 6 horses." So I went, "Not the one with 2, but the one with," and I improvised. I had only 5 fingers, of course, and I held up my leg, and the audience went crazy. So my brother was there with his then-time girlfriend, and I think he was still playing college football. He signed as a free agent with the Jets and was tax squad and everything, and this is who became Bo-Star. So he goes, "This is what you're gonna do." I said, "Nah, no, I'll probably, be a poli-sci major or run social programs in the neighborhood and do all this." I mean, I wanna do this. I mean, it's fun. I can do theater." He goes, "Listen to me." I said, "But I'm just waiting to clear up. I wanna play football." He said, "Football." He said, "That's for jocks are out." He said, "This is the late '60s,
Yeah.
right?" Yeah. He got a little more, which I was very, naive, but he said, "Actors and musicians are in, and, they're getting whatever," they're meeting people by by that. He said, "Forget that other stuff. Forget who cares about football players and that's out." Said, "This is the cool thing to do." So I was thinking, so okay, cool. So I wound up being in a talent contest. It was funny. I thought I was gonna be the local councilman, a congressman, of Queens or whatever. I thought that's what I was gonna do. And my brother brings me out to Hofstra University, and they then had a phenomenal drama department. It wasn't Juilliard because it was an old performing arts high school or whatever, performing arts school, but we had great people who went on to do great things. So I watched in this 1,100 seat theater, and I was blown away. And actually, Brian Dennehy's brother Ed, who
Huh.
brilliant, uh, and Brian wasn't an actor yet. Uh,
Hmm.
I believe he played football in this, and I was at Columbia. I might have been a stockbroker at the time, whatever. And there was this fella, Al Tank Passuelo, and he had been an author, and he just did things. He owned a nearby bar, but he was this wonderful, gifted actor who was just larger than life, and he was in. I saw him do Born Yesterday, and my friend Dan Held, who become a friend and a director, and Ed Dennehy, I saw do the Irish play The Hostage, and he was brilliant. Just had some habits that derailed him, seemed to derail him along the way, but I saw him do things. He wound up getting all these opportunities, but it's a tough story. But later on, Tank Pesuelo, Al, got Brian Dennehy, God rest their souls, both of them, all 3 of them actually. He got Brian Dennehy to do local community theater and things like that, and people saw him. And then Brian got very serious about it, but I guess they were both supernatural. Maybe it comes along with being Irish or Catholic or something. I don't know, but I always looked up to both of them. And I was blown away watching The Hostage and watching this. And I just watched not only the show, but I was able to watch rehearsal.
Yeah.
And Hank took me in when I got honored at the alumni. I honored him, and I was thrilled to get him up on Broadway. And he did things in New York, but he never like fully. And he was just considered great. He ran his own theater. So my brother is now with the Jets, trying out for the Jets, and me and my dad go to a practice. We would go to practices. One day we go to the place that Tank owned with the old Russian Bill Kuzovich. He owned Bill's Meadowbrook. That's where the Jets went when they moved out of upstate New York. They were at Hofstra University. So I'm sitting there, and my brother brings in these 2 people. One would be my mentor. One was one of the top college actresses and went on to nice careers, soaps and whatnot. Carol Seeker and Lynn Ann Leverage. I remember sitting there. She starts telling me about this drama corps program.
Hmm.
50, 50. Is this okay? Am I talking? Is
Well, I
this
was curious. Yeah, we
loose?
were talking about how you met your wife. So how
Yeah.
did you
Well,
meet your wife?
I'm getting there. I'm
Hmm.
getting there. So that's what happened. I wound up, my brother, because I think it's a better story before I tell you how I met my wife, how I got into acting, because I'm thinking about
Yeah,
what
yeah.
your
No, this is
daughter's
good.
going through.
That was a
Yeah,
question I would be asking
yeah,
anyway, so this is perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that okay? All right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I tell sometimes my best friend, Captain Cranky Brian, who was our top actor and coaches me still in dialects and everything. He says, "Boy, that was a long walk for a warm drink of water." But so I'm sitting there and tell the Carol Seekers, who was one of the big teachers there, and telling me about, and it's all working together, and I'm being polite,
Mhm.
and for one common cause, of art and this and that, and we'll have speech and dance and everything, and I'm like, I'm being polite. I just wanted to do the plays, and what did I know? So my brother grabs me when they leave and go, "What did you think?" I said, "Oh, nice people." "No, no, no. What did you think? What do you think about what?" Said being a drama major. "Are you serious? Are you kidding me? What? I never be a drama major. You get all the kids from performing arts. All these people have been doing it for years. I don't think I fit in there." He goes, "Hey, schmuck, listen to me." My brother could be very tough on me
Mhm.
and very helpful. He goes, "They don't have anyone that looks like you, talks like you, or comes from where we come from. If you take the minimum amount of credits and you're any good, you're going to get a full scholarship."
Oop.
So
Mhm.
you get a full scholarship, right? I got you.
Right.
Oh, okay. Full scholarship. A week later or 2 weeks later, there I was in tights. This guy from an all boy the projects and an all boys Catholic high school dancing with these beautiful men and women, and I'm dancing and I'm doing run, run, leap and everything. So I wound up staying 5 years. I wound up doing musicals as well, which I will get to. But so I got out of school in the early '70s, and I'm thinking, no, what am I going to do? And I went through a thing that a lot of us can go through. Some people they wait till midlife, and that was the '60s and the early '70s. And what is life's meaning? What is this and that? And I said, geez, I'm just gonna I'll graduate, drop out, and just I don't know. I'll search for the Buddha and Jesus and anyone else that wants to help me out. So a friend of mine, Tom Bray, who wound up having a wonderful career, now he is a mentor to people in Portland, Oregon, teaches at high school, I believe. And my friend Doug Baldwin, I wound up meeting. He said to me, Mike, he was a freshman, a real entrepreneur, and a young fellow, Larry Pontillo from Connecticut. Tom and I always had a great time. We had done this musical Fiorello together, and that was one of my first big breaks. That hey, I maybe could do musical theater too. Um, he said, Larry's got this high school that we can make a summer theater, and and I could really use you. I said, nah, I don't really want. He said, no, I. He said, listen, just do one show there. We're going to do 1776, and you can sing and you do dialects. I want you to play the Scottish Colonel. It's a secondary role. I said, all right, I'll have fun. Well, my wife Joanne at the time was not a pediatric heart surgeon, which she is today, was in the small orchestra playing the flute. And her sister was the cook for the place, cooked, and she became a big psychiatrist and helped a lot of people. And I think my sister-in-law got paid, but my wife didn't get paid. She helped with the cooking. She came from 7 kids and also also was playing flute. And I don't know, we were friends, and next thing I know, 2 years later, we got married.
Wow.
And 3 kids and 11 years later,
Wow.
I knew she was gifted for this. She got into med school,
Oh,
and
wow.
we all did it together. Yeah, and you could just see anything she did and the way she helped people, so many different people, that there was something she had to do, and she thought I was nuts. I said, "Come on, the midwives told us, if you think of being a midwife, the midwives told us they have to defer to a medical doctor, which usually is a male. Um, and why don't you have your east-west, have anything all the different ways, and yet have the medical degree and really learn so much from that and go the whole route, maybe even be a surgeon." She goes, "You're crazy. You know what I'm gonna put you through?" I said, "For the last 13, 15 years that you know me, you call my friends Mike's Asylum, the lunatics that have passed through these doors and what I put you through." I said, "It's your turn now to do whatever." And I said, not that I was the reason, everyone, so many people. She was working at Sloan Kettering and working in a lot of these older doctors saying, this is what you need to do. And people, it's not just me, but, um, but I felt at the time also, you don't want to turn around. She even let me try out to play in this minor league football team to get a shot. But, uh, I said, you don't want to look back. when you're 60 or whatever. We don't want to say, you would have been great at this, but I had a husband, I had a family, this and that. I mean, it's not like the kids were not born yet, this and that. We had made it work, and
Yeah.
I don't know how she does. She's amazing, but and still working like she's in her 20s. The nurses told me, and I get recognized. My favorite recognition is to be Dr. Starr's husband all over the country and in a few other countries with, oh, saved my kid's life. Send me my nephew, oh, saved my life 20 years or 25, I just had another one like that recently. I'll send you the photo when I get your number of someone at an event I was at. But um, we did it together. I'm still doing it together, but the kids are involved. And in fact, I tell everyone we didn't have a sitter for my wife's finals. Um, I said, I'll take care of this. Too big an opportunity because it was Goodfellas, right? I said, no,
Yeah.
don't worry. And I went to the second AD, Vivi, who was Victor Borge's son. And he's such a great guy. I said, hey, what are we doing the week of the 15th in May? He said, the wedding scene. Why? I said, you need kids? So two of my kids were in the scene. That's how I watched them for my wife's med school. And my 16-year-old daughter at the time, who's now a principal out in Chicago, she didn't want to take off from school. That's how serious she was. She regretted that one. And
Can I ask you a
yeah,
question about that, actually?
anything.
I wanna bring you back a little bit and talk about
Sure,
this.
please. You got to
So
reel me
you're
back.
Yeah, yeah,
Has any of this been helpful at all?
it has been helpful very much. I actually wanted to ask you, so you are there's not a you said your wife is a pediatric doctor, is that right?
Cardiothoracic surgeon.
Surgeon, okay.
Not many women do that.
Not many women do that, and then the women who do that are not very often married to working actors, and
You got it.
the
Or
thing that
married,
yeah, yeah, right, and that's what I'm saying is
or
that
having
you
kids, and now
yeah, and
kids,
I
grandchildren.
yeah, that's and my question is how in the world did you guys live in completely different worlds, both busy, how did you make that work?
I think that it's actually in a lot of ways a lot easier than people being in the same world, like,
Mm,
I don't know, I can't judge people, I mean, I know a lot of wonderful, marriages and doctors and actors and actresses or all actors, whatever terms we use now, but it is funny. No, you asked a great question. One thing that kept me in perspective, how can I say, "Oh, this casting director didn't like me," or something, "Oh, they're not getting the funding for the film," when I know what she's dealing with every day,
right,
Uh, I don't know, it's, again, when you had parents come out of the Depression, the World War II, and the Korean War, whatever, and maybe not thinking they had the opportunity, do you know what I mean? I don't mean that they lived
yeah,
miserable lives or anything, but you again with not I don't want to sound over patriotic or under patriotic, but just the fact is when living in this country, when you deal with other people that come from other places, immigrants or know where people come from, we have such phenomenal opportunities and the perspective that people don't have if they haven't people get it that have been in wars in foreign lands or whatever. They go, whoa, boy, do we have it easy, and you wanna tell younger generations like, other generations, the World War II generation told us, you don't realize how easy you have it. So,
yeah,
to me, it's a great question. It was, sometimes I did all different jobs. It'd be funny, like, I'd be my brother Jimmy, God rest soul, helped us out. So many people helped us out, first of all, and my brother Jimmy I've lost 2 brothers in Enlisted. I had 3 older brothers. And my brother Jimmy a few years ago, he was collecting for Agent Orange in Vietnam. He was doing well as a bartender, this and that. So he would take me and Joanne, my wife, to the theater. They would
mm,
help out. Emily would help out with the kids. When my wife got into med school, we had to move to the Bronx. When she went for residency, my oldest brother John goes and his wife Joanne, crazy from Brooklyn, silly enough, and they watched the kids while we went a week into England to decide. That's where she was born. Her dad was in the U.S. Air Force,
mm,
and um, we were going to make the decision. What are you going to do? But she got into med school. It's a great question, but I don't know. You look at what people deal with in reality. I mean, it is a great accomplishment for her and the kids and me, and we did all work together. But and I'll try to be practical about it. But when you see what other people deal with day to day, I mean, so I was this big guy that could my brother Jimmy said, "Hey, you could work." I said, "I'm useless, partner." Sunday, Monday, while she's in med school. Literally, I would have experiences in Queens where someone would come in, and I think I was on the show Crime Story or whatever, where I met Dennis Farina, and I was on an episode, and I'm tending bar there, Queens. They said, "Isn't that you on this? I just saw you on the screen. Was that you?" Or people, they'd see me in the Bronx. They just knew this weird guy who walked around with his kids. So only a few times did I have to go away um, for longer than a few weeks, but I only once or twice at the theater and sent all the money home. But
Mhm.
I I would take a job, and yeah, it's amazing that while she was an undergrad or even not in school yet, other times I'd go away and I'd try to come right back or send money or with the cheap air and fly up there to see me. But I'm trying to think. Yeah, there were times I went away and we had to get what's called an au pair, but it
Mm.
wasn't, you didn't get Mary fucking Poppins, pardon my language,
Yeah.
Mary Poppins in there. You got these people from Europe, a lot of them just wanted to party, and I had enough connections with clubs in the neighborhood that I'd set them up. Sometimes people, didn't get it, but you didn't have you'd hear these stories, "Oh, we have an au pair, it's this." We had some characters and some really interesting ones and artists and this and that, and it wasn't like I was never home or my wife was never home. We needed someone there if one of us wasn't. So,
Mm.
literally, I remember when I got the movie Uncle Buck, John Hughes had us all read the same character in a bowling alley or something. But my wife was, I think, in her last year of med school. I remember sitting at Parents' Day or something. So not everyone she could make, especially when she was a resident. But
Mhm.
I'd be sitting there watching, the class. Oh, they're doing this, and I'm learning my lines, and jumped on a subway. I jump on a subway into Manhattan and from the Bronx, and a lot of times in Queens. And I remember taking this play that was very popular. I had a small partner play with these huge stars at the Public Theater. It was the most popular people casting around. Everyone asked, "Can you get me in there?" And I remember one of the things I liked about it so much is I could meet my son at the bus from one of the schools, and then we had a school that was across the way. So if I was out of work, a lot of time I would have him, and and then I was gradually getting things in New York at the time. They would come and most of so many of the characters were played by older people in those days. I think
Mhm.
John Hughes helped change that. But they would come and you'd get a couple of days on a film maybe. But I started doing regional theater and a lot of off-Broadway showcase. So sometimes the uh the time thing was tough and you worked it out even before. I mean, before we moved to the Bronx, she was home and we had someone or had a sitter or something like that. Again, it wasn't like a nanny. Or we had this neighbor
Mm.
from, I think,
Yeah.
Hungary, and she watched the kids, and different that, and,
So it
um
sounds like a lot more like community kinda helping you out when you needed it, but there were times
yeah.
where you guys could kind of
Oh, there were
yeah,
times we were stuck, but I was either home or not, home with the kids, or not if I was, out of work, I was there. You know, there would be people I would do things like the Broadway show, like, believe me, I did things, but I wasn't a nighttime partier. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes you had to be at events, but
sure.
everything was, prioritizing the family, and my weight would go up and down, and I said, I think I was going out and eating whatever, drinking beer or whatever I did in those days, but, I'd say, "Where the hell did those 30 pounds come from?" And then all of a sudden, I get down, they say, "Oh, I don't think you're a good type, you lost too much weight," whatever, but, it would vary. I mean, Dumb and Dumber, I showed up, I said, "Is that me?" But, so then when she got into residency, it was really interesting. I To answer that, uh she got in Columbia Presbyterian. Actually, they really placed her, which was now New York Presbyterian. And again, not getting into anyone's politics or philosophy or anything, but one of the people, he's a big celebrity now, but he was a thoracic surgeon, cardiothoracic surgeon, was Dr. Oz.
Mhm.
And he gave, along with other surgeons, that gave her an opportunity. And I used to go over his house and he'd make salmon and I bring cigars or whatever. I'm not supposed to say that, right? That they smoke cigars, I guess. But and then his wife Lisa, I did an indie film for. But there were different people. It's funny that you say the community help. There were different people that really believed in her, and she's the opposite of me: quiet, humble, centered. centered and fearless. I got
Well,
love you, Kobe.
that's always how the best marriages work, right?
That's
Is you
exactly right.
really separate
And
people.
she is very open when it comes to looking out for patients, and she does still goes the ridiculous amount of extra miles, but that's her. And I'll give you an example. In 1992, she was a second year resident. We were living in the Bronx, and I had met. We did this. The hell happened? There was at a something I had met. Was able to meet Blake Edwards or something for some reason, and I just wanted to be in this show. He was a Broadway show he's gonna do, and I went out to, for some reason, went out to California. Was it 92? Somewhere around there. But to give an example, I didn't think anything of it, and I I'm wondering how the hell am I gonna get the rent this month? Wheel and deal. Okay, work here, then that. All these guys will help me out with this, and people, friends with like I can't tell you how many people did the right thing by me, but family. I said, okay, I'm gonna get this. So I go down. I don't know if you know anything about the Broadway show. Like Central Park has all these varying levels of leagues, but on Thursday, the people from the Broadway shows played. So you could see Al Pacino playing. You could see it was a lot of
Wow.
fun. Some ex professional athletes that might, basketball players that might have been married, I think, to some stars or whatever, and then you'd have some great ringers and the guys who worked in the ticket booth. There were some phenomenal teams and the stagehands and legendary bars, and you'd have great times. So I went to John Goodman used to walk around. He was very
Mm,
like to himself, always a good guy with me, but he would sit and watch the games. He never played that I remember,
mm.
but he called me the mayor of Central Park, and he would laugh and tease me. I'd be yapping to everybody, and I remember I got in one with Coach Barry. I got in this one thing. We played in the restaurant league. Eventually, won this league, and not because of me, but I would find ways to get free food in a lot of restaurants, and you met people, and you met. I got an agent there, and I wasn't trying there to catch her. This guy said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I just did some, great Philadelphia theater. I did it Mice and Men," and he said, "Well, I'm working for this guy. He was great," and the guy was my agent for years. So I went down to Central Park on a Thursday and said, and this is what our life was like, and I got to get back for the kids. But I said, guys, anyone leaving Guys and Dolls? Come on. We have a bad contract. You're not going to like. I said, anything. I need a job. Can anyone leaving the show? Maybe I can get in and play Big Julie or something.
Right.
And I go, they said, no, no, we're not leaving. So I hung around and I go to the phones on 57th Street, and you would call in those days a service, and they'd say 7 lively odds. You'd all have a service, and their agents would, the agents hopefully, or commercials would call you and say, oh, you booked, or you're on hold. Anyway, it said, call Jonathan, your agent in California, because my agent had moved out there, and this guy Jonathan Leibson was great, and he was working. He goes, hey Mike. I said, yeah, what's going on, John? Remember when you went in and met Blake Edwards? I said, yeah, yeah, there was nothing in it for me in the movie. They're doing the Pink Panther with Roberto Benigni, bring back. Well, guess what? Not only did you get it, but you have to be in Nice on Sunday. I didn't
Oh,
even have luggage. I went to Green Luggage, and my friend Jeff Green on the team, who was a legitimate player, his family owned it by Grand Central, got this luggage. No, next thing I know, I'm in Nice, and then my wife came over 3 different times. We were in England, France, Nice, France, and then Jordan. We did a couple of weeks in a week, something like that, because Blake Edwards had always kind of needed. It's the film was a lot funnier off stage and being with all the great characters. Of course, Peter Sellers had passed away, but even his stunt double and stunt coordinator was on it. But Roberto Benigni was heaven. They say the movie didn't quite work, but that's okay. So I went from looking for the rent to a couple of weeks later, my oldest daughter's walking down a beach in the south of France with Mary Poppins with Julie Andrews. That's how bizarre. So when you ask me, it's hard. It's up and down and up and down. It was never like, okay, now if I just study hard enough, I'll get this job, and I'm going to move to the next one. They're going to give me a raise, and I'm going to move up, which is nothing wrong with that. But I tell people, acting doesn't work like that. This is not the docs where someone picks you out. I mean, some people are lucky or have some connections, but it would always be up and down. and I wasn't great on saving money because, for instance, this one serious British producer said, "You're spending all your money on bringing your kids over." I had my 2 kids and then eventually my 3 kids, and then my
Right.
wife came over one time for our anniversary for one night, and she was working crazy as a resident. It was her 2nd year. So there were stories like that. We did it all together. Does that
Yeah.
help at all?
It does. It's very helpful. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about, one of the things that I remember most from you is the character that you played on Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, great.
So,
Okay.
you were, Joe Mentalino,
Yeah.
and, that whole scene, I wanna walk through that with you and figure it out. So you get the part,
Yeah, that
uh
is a great story, of course. Yeah, how we got it.
yeah, yeah, and you get the part. Tell me what it was like specifically, working on that set.
Nothing but laughs. Peter Farrelly and Bobby Farrelly, I would break Bobby Farrelly's balls. Peter would prank me at night, he'd do things. We just you have to if you ever get a chance to meet the Farrelly brothers or interview them on your podcast, they're very unique, special people who involve their family, they involve friends, they do things for people, they don't forget where they come from, but there was also a humor on the set, and from the day I met him, Peter, which I was did everything not to get the film because I was making all the wrong going to the wrong building, then the right building, the wrong room. But Jim wanted me from day one. He actually, I think, wanted me for something in Ace Ventura, and his agents somehow screwed it up, said I wasn't available. But meeting Peter, he said that he wanted and Bobby and Jim insisted on getting an actor who had played I guess a mob guy or a bad guy, whatever you want to say, or a killer, and not someone that was known as a comedian. Now, it bit me in the ass twice years later, where someone, young person, would say, "Isn't he a comedian?" And
Right.
I don't know if they'll believe him as this. And after the head of the Teamsters in Illinois said, "I want you to play my life story," I went in on something, and they went, "I think he's a comedian," or some Ivy League guy saying, "Yeah, no, I don't know if he knows he got to play like this." And uh, that's okay. I mean, it's all right, not to besmirch anyone, or any other this, but so I went in there very comfortable, and Jeff was just Jeff he he is one of a kind of, as Jim is. Jim is like, "Wow," out there, and Jeff was, like, really quiet, and I wound up messing with him, and we just laughed so much, uh, and Jim, I'd watch hockey with him, so when I got to, we filmed in Utah, that they did exteriors in Rhode Island, but we did a lot of stuff in Utah and Colorado to be on the
Mhm.
road and this and that. And they had in Provo, they had apartment buildings that looked like their building, looked like it was Rhode Island. And even, of course, hey, the gas man, how'd they know I guess, those were like interiors of apartment buildings that
Sure.
that worked perfectly. So the first night I got there, and Cam Neely, the Hall of Fame hockey player and a Hall of Fame human being, was playing Seabass,
Yeah.
and the Farrelly brothers were running over, so they said, "Just wait for us upstairs," and I'm watching hockey, and you don't recognize people with they're not wearing this or that, and Cam Lewis says, "You mind if I sit with you?" And I think I said everything wrong to him. I said, "Yeah, I'm rooting for this." He goes, "Yeah, I'm rooting for the Bruins." I said, "Oh, okay." Looked at him and I play with him. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He was just I told everyone I was his personal acting coach. I don't know how true that is, but, uh but Cam is sitting there, and I think I said, "Oh, the only guy I know is" I mentioned this guy. He said, "Yeah, he blew out my knee." I said, "I'm doing great with you." He goes, "No, it was a clean hit, not like the other guy." And we got to be friends and hung out. But now I'm still waiting, and they reopened the restaurant for us and the Farrelly brothers. I'm not a guy who watches, what they call dailies or rushes or whatever, like a lot of some actors love to watch themselves and some wanna see it because they wanna see how they're doing, but with me, I figured it would make me too self-conscious. I always tell the people, say, "Hey, I don't walk like this. I walk like this, and I talk like this." Whatever, you watch and you'd say, "Is that me?" Some actors don't wanna see themselves, but they showed me footage of Jeff Daniels. Here's the first things I saw, his tongue stuck the bolt, right? And
Right.
then the other one was the snowball fight, and I lost it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's supposed to be this playful romantic thing, and he's a lunatic. I said and I had read the script, and I said, "This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be awesome." And we just sat and laughed. And so when I got to the set, at first I met Karen Duffy and makeup and hair. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I traveled. We were living in the Bronx, and Karen broke my balls. She was great. She's really quite a feisty, great character. And I was producing now. I think she's doing things with Bill Murray and things like that. But which she'd be a great interview. She's had a fascinating life and career, and still going at it, and still she looks tremendous, and she's something else. But I I don't know what it was. I can't remember the first scenes we did, but you were kind of just like I felt about Goodfellas. You're along for the ride, but on the other hand, you got to step up. And
Right.
you're doing with his is Jeff Daniels, who I never knew who's just going for it completely and going for the comedy completely. And as soon as it stopped, he would be, very low key to whatever, except when he talked, the Farrelly brothers had all these hockey connections. And Jeff was so passionate talking to their friend Kevin Costner, who was a hockey coach and was played ahead of Bobby Farrelly and at RPI, and he was like so passionate about hockey and his theater, and he was great. It's wonderful. And then you got Jim, who I'd been watching on Living Color like a maniac when my wife was in med school, and I'd have the kids, and that was one of our rituals on Sunday night. Uh, Now, I enjoy the pressure. Just like I was going to joke when you said you were so complimentary about me. I said, "Boy, no pressure, huh?" To
Yeah.
me, but, I like that. It's funny. It's like a sport. I consider myself the guy who comes off the bench or maybe is the pinch hitter or the guy who steps in there and he's, batting 7th or plays the, offensive guard or whatever. I I like to think that, but when I can rise to the occasion, hopefully I'm successful. So, I I had nothing but respect, and they were just so cool with me, and I had come out of some things. I had been in, uh, Goodfellas, Medon Glory, The Bodyguard. So I was pretty comfortable. I'd say I was somewhat veteran by then. I was in my early 40s, but it wasn't like I was, what do I do next? Or what if he says something funny? But they made it so easy. Like I'm sitting there, and I think the best comedy, like, comes out of reality. Not that I was Mr. Subtle or anything all the time, but if it came out of a reality, and that's what I tried to do, and I played it hopefully played it real, and of course, you had to do things with the with the peppers and everything, but if I was to
Right.
it's like you learned in 40s movies and 50s of the straight man or the setup guy, so the first time I hear the most annoying sound, I just gotta play it real, and I'm such a neurotic that, people knew things bother me, they're poking me, and I've had interviews and people, I communicate wrong, they think I was really angry at Jim and Jeff, "Oh, you got mad, didn't you?" I said, "No, no, 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 no. Actors is told to use things." So people got a kick out of watching me who knew me, how this would probably screaming in my ear and everything, but you just do it as if I guess I'm no big acting teacher, but you do it as if, what in this situation, how would I react like this, or how would this guy react like that? So sometimes I bit my lip not to laugh, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're laying
I
on the ground and they're going, pills are good, and
Yeah.
then Carrie says a line like, "This'll go a lot easier if you just relax." I mean,
Yeah.
some of these lines got away with it, and they were gonna do a lot more. It's crazy stuff that he says, and he whispers in my ear, he goes, "Mike, pump your legs twice, and the third time really shove me back, kick me back." And I didn't kick him like that, but I shoved him really hard the third time, and he went flying into the wall. Not on control. I mean, he's just phenomenal with
Right.
everything else, physical specimen, the things he could do. He comes back in with the Venetian blinds in his hands. Now I'm supposed to be dying, and I just wanna laugh my ass off, you know?
Right.
So you just think bad things or whatever, you stay focused like, "Ah." So
I was gonna say, how is it possible, like, watching it, you couldn't help but laugh so hard. I
mhm,
got to imagine if they're ad-libbing some of this stuff, that it was almost impossible to not break break in the middle? I mean, how
I
do you
was lucky I didn't. I think if you stay really focused, do you ever watch, I don't know if you're a big Seinfeld fan, but you watch
Oh, yeah.
outtakes?
Yeah.
So, you watch sometimes where they're just losing it, and I can understand on, you know, week to week sitcom, and you're able to do that and laugh because it's so much fun, and, uh and you would see, Michael Richards say, come on, man," like according to the interviews I saw with Seinfeld or on the outtakes with Larry David, that, you know, Michael Richards would be very serious, not mean or anything like that, I mean, but some people don't crack up. I know I did a play with Malcolm McDowell in LA years ago, and he would do things just to completely and you just wanna laugh your ass off, and we're
Yeah.
doing this serious play, and I'm supposed to be like a Polish KGB guy coming in, and he's this artist and everything, and it was based on truth, and he would do things some of these guys, the British guys, would really do a lot of pranks, and, and I and I don't know why, I don't lose it. I did a movie, The Last Dragon, with Chris Murney, and we were starting to laugh at a lot of things, and he goes, "You silly goose, you idiot, would you stop with the laughing?" Because we would do crazy old bits like, "Yeah, give me that gun, no, no," and I just stopped laughing, he would make me laugh. That was one of the only ones I really, started laughing, and for some reason, I guess I treated it as if it was reality,
Sure.
so that
Yeah.
not that I was so deep and dark and everything, but that wasn't my job, so it'll be funny, but it was hard not to, like I said, you think things, or if you're totally in the moment and I'm playing a comedy here. Again, was in a sitcom or something like that. I mean, but I could see when people are on a hit show, they just laugh. You watching like Carol Burnett, and a lot of
Yeah.
times laughter on it. I mean,
Right.
Nathan would get me sometimes on stage, and I had to really hold it, but most of the time you're just into it. It's a great question. I hope I answered it right.
Yeah, no, and I
Too much
actually wanted
decaffeinated tea.
I wanted to ask you, you've done both some really funny roles and then, been in key comedies, and then you've been in very serious roles. I mean, it seems like you're always kind of I don't wanna say typecast, but you do play a kinda, a role that,
A
kind of
lot of
like a
yeah.
strong yeah, a strong guy. Do you have a preference of whether you'd like to be in comedies or you'd like to be more in, like, serious gangster roles? What is it that you prefer?
I think more and more I'd rather just play the nice person or whatever, but a lot of times people say you play a mom get with a heart or a detective with a heart, but they keep casting me as if I finally am a detective. I have a great inside story, with that. Oh boy, is this dropping names. But I'm really good friends with, Michael Jordan's most trusted guy, George, which is a great story. He knows him for 40 years. You'll see him on like a documentary. And through my friend, God rest his soul, Donnie, who had an iconic place in Chicago, I got to know some people. I don't like say, "Oh, we're good friends." "Oh, you want his number?" Well, I have actors who tell me, "Oh, I know this producer, director. You need to talk to him." No, no, no. But it was always cool to me if he'd see me in places, and yeah, I don't abuse people's kindness and celebrities and this and that, as stars, whatever. But he was a big Law and Order fan. I did 4 of them. So
Mhm.
wherever George was traveling with he has such great stories about Michael Jordan. And he goes, "Hey, George, your boy Mike's on now. He's on. Mike's on Law and Order," something like that. And George says he walks in and goes, "Oh, finally, he's
Yeah.
playing a good guy. He's the detective." And Jordan's watched these shows. He goes, "No, stick around."
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I play the bad cop, the bad detective. And I had on, Ice Harvest with, Billy Bob, John Cusack, Oliver Platt, Clay, oh, so many wonderful people on that. And I played a guy who was in the shadows all the time. Um, um, and oh god, I'm just going up on the name of the director a second. Harold Ramis, so such a wonderful person and
Oh,
talent.
wow.
And he said, "Mike, I hope you don't mind, but you're gonna be in a box, you're gonna be in the shadows all the time. It'll be a great reveal when you come out, but we're gonna do a lot of human voice." I said, "Please, whatever works for the film." And, I had so much fun on that, and one of the producers came up to me and said, "Mike, you're such a nice guy, and I see you with everyone sweet and fun and friendly. I mean, I'm not perfect, but uh, said, but you're really nice. How do you play such mean people?"
Yeah.
So I said, I think maybe 5% of my person. There's something inside of me that's dark and strange, and I just try to access that. But again, I know that there's a difference, and I guess my friend Captain Cranky teaches me that Stanislavski talks about there's a difference between reality and making believe. Not that I knock anyone who's really into it. Sometimes it can damage people. They get so into it, or the people who start acting like they're the tough guy. I know as soon as like with watching Jeff when the lights go off or whatever. Here, this is the guy. Yeah, and
Yeah.
uh, uh, so I don't know what I would say. Sometimes, people like to play really bad guys. What's interesting with me, and I learned it from a lot of people, including Kevin Costner and Sidney Lumet, and even William Freak in the first film I did in New York, that Kevin would say to me, "Mike, you got this great energy, and I don't have that." He says, "All I know how to do," and he was being very humble. He says, "is stand and deliver." He said, "You should find as much as you can moments," he said, "because you have this wonderful energy, but where you can stand and deliver." Dustin did that for me on Billy Bathgate, because it's interesting when you a guy like this and you're very still, what comes out on film, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I read Michael Caine's book and got to work with him, but it's, sometimes it's a chance to play that. Like, I was thrilled. I was doing the show Ed, and they brought me out to do West Wing. It was one scene, one of the leads, and going up on his name, one of the great guys on it, Richard show, and um, I got to be a senator from,
Mm.
Pennsylvania. It was a really and boy, if you had the out of place, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one thing I learned from theater in Catholic school was, good and learning lines and this and that, and you better have it exactly right, and a lot of the training I had in theater where, some people just go, "Hey, it's just a roadmap," and then, no, 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 they let you know. I had someone
Yeah.
come up to me and say, "I'm the dialogue coach." I said, "Oh, I need to do a dialect for this?" He said, "No, no, no, the dialogue." And, they wanted it just right. So, I like challenging roles. Um,
Mm.
sometimes I don't like I actually dropped out of one thing, and then they gave me a different part, Last Exit to Brooklyn, where I didn't wanna be, um there was a rape scene that I didn't care for because we weren't punished, and I just didn't want that energy. There's a few things like, if you do something like with a terrible, like if you're it's a big decision if you're gonna play someone, and unless you're punished, whatever, or there's some things I'm not comfortable with,
Mhm. So, like,
playing
you're not
abuse,
play like, comfortable playing someone who's an abuser or,
pederast.
like yeah,
A
or
what?
like an
Yeah.
abuser or someone who's abusing
Yeah, I know
kids
there
or
was one thing I had to think it over, and one thing, and they went totally different, but I remember I said, "Geez," uh, but the guy had been a former, I can't remember, it was a famous film, former pederast, something like that, and he was supposedly reformed in his study, and I said, "Gee, I don't know." But, Billy Bob Thornton called me for Bad Santa 2, and the guy was
okay.
kinda creepy, so I asked my daughters completely. I said, "Could I" said, "It's a comedy, dad, this and that," and there was a line, and it was so outrageous that when they tested, they said, "Mike," they had to bring me in and, play it differently. I was an obnoxious Santa with him, and he has to kick me in the balls, whatever, like that, but I had to but it's they I mean, you look at what the Farrelly brothers did in Something About Mary, and now that's different. I'm just saying they went over, but there were things they wanted to do that New Line wouldn't let them do, and I'm glad in Dumb and Dumber because it's such a has a broader audience. They had really outrageous humor in that,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
worked for the other one, but,
yeah.
not that I had they asked me to do anything weird. The problem with playing certain characters and people, not that I'm involved, in any way with certain things or crime that, oh, I know the real life, but people. And one of the problems sometimes when you in a television show, I might play a character who has a lot of power or audition for something. They say, "Why are you smiling? You don't
Uh,
have to be nice because you're in the powerful position." I don't want to get into a discussion. I said, everyone doesn't talk like this when they're the head of a union and a big,
right.
powerful position and go, no, you do this. It works in some situations, but I sometimes the energy is right, sometimes it isn't. Law and Order, I got to be all very serious people, as I remember. I had a cameo in the pilot where I was just a truck driver. They asked questions, but uh, I don't know. I'd like to. Sometimes people ask me, "What would you like to do?" I said, "I'd like to be either the drunken uncle or whatever, the lovable uncle." I don't want to be a drunk, but or the neighbor, like who's kind of goofy, and you get a check every week for being that, and you show up and you do a sitcom. Well, hey, I can't do that, Uh,
Yeah.
but also, we're involved now with friends of trying to do our own things, and especially in this climate in LA of lack of work. And then also, people think you're just that. Like if, oh, yeah, well, he's always a mobster, this and that, and it's funny. I got to play a really interesting character on Ray Donovan and Blacklist and even Shameless. And
Mm.
they, it's almost a Gardner streak. I was great with Bill. And then um, on different ones you play, I got to play a guy that you're not sure if he has Alzheimer's, but he had been a bad cop on Ray Donovan and had do the South Boston sound and everything. But even on Blacklist, which was such an interesting film, and James is like Spader is like you talk. I mean, all things I mentioned were top level phenomenal acts. James Spader, I mean, his attention to detail for you too, not coaching you, just saying, "Hey, this is the wrong prop for Mike. He said this. What are you doing with this?" And he not nasty, but they all, John, all of them people, and all those three I mentioned, and Bill, all had different levels of different styles, but they all were like top shelf about
Yeah.
making it great. So you knew you were the greatest of the greatest, and
Did you have an actor that you particularly like, is there someone that sticks out as the one that you enjoyed working with the most?
oh, I hate to say that, but I mean people that I admired, like I thought you were going in the direction of I would try to look at Gene Hackman. It's hard because I was on The Natural, and I just
Mm.
improvised once in a while, and Wilford Brimley and Richard Farnsworth were made, but Robert Redford is one of the classiest human beings and talents that you could
Mm.
imagine being around,
I bet.
and, De Niro, I
Mm.
mean, with him and Scorsese and Ray, I mean, just set me up, and he's so supportive. I mean, people have these views of him, I don't know what it is, or they think this and that, or he's that, you know? Boy, when you're working with him in Mad Dog and Glory and the people, he's just and Dustin was so helpful. So each one is, I had to say, oh, no, I did. I was lucky to be with Davy Provo and John Lithgow on Broadway show. Again, not a big role. And Dan Luria got me in my first play. So I hate to, and then there are friends who are dynamite character actors that maybe, oh, they get, no, I mean, Stephen Root and things like that, and working with Kevin Smith and, uh, I mean, one of the two hardest workers I ever saw, I think. I mean, I don't want to compare them to other people, but two of the hardest workers with George Carlin when we did
Mm.
Jerseyville. He was so serious about.
Mm.
Kevin told me that he months before we shot um, for the kitchen, he asked for the dimensions of the kitchen and put it in his own kitchen that he was going to be doing scenes with Ben Affleck and Rachel Casper, the daughter, Ben Affleck in
Mm.
it playing, and with Liv Tyler was in that, and it was great. But he was so serious, and he'd even talk to me and Steven, and he might say he wasn't a big hanger outer anymore at the time. He brought us to his show, us and the Teamsters and the crew. Um, we went to see him, but he would try out some things on us or ask us what we thought. And then Tracy Ullman, I got lucky to be on that show. I was out doing a
Oh, wow.
play. Sam McMurray and I mean they had Jake Hogan writing. I mean these great people. Uh, I got to so I was comfortable. But Tracy, I mean, she there was this funny dinner theater scene I did with oh, when we go to place on the wife on The Simpsons, and she did so Julie, um, and I had to play this slobby guy, was eating during a dinner theater, and she was a fading actress, and they had
Mm.
such great people, and she was a fading actress, so she was in the dinner theater, and I'm glomming food. It was a brilliant thing, and then I played the captain on a pirate ship that she did, and she blacked out her teeth and everything, and she was different every time, but she would say, "What does this sound like, Mike?" and that she'd say, and she'd learn this middle act, so she sounded like an American theater actress, fanatic. And I had wanted for the kids. It was around Christmas time. I went on a roll of shows where I'd be when they were giving out gifts, but I had said, "Oh, my kids love you. We watch you." Sunday night, and this and that. And my wife had just started med school at the time. And that's when Dan Castellaneta they were doing a 5 minute Simpsons show. And,
Yeah.
right?
That was a great that was yeah, that's where The Simpsons was born.
Yeah.
So
And,
now,
and so,
did you
no, I just want to say that Tracy, just to give an example, she'd come out, all right, and she'd have these outfits and wigs. So I said, Tracy, I'm going home. I just want to thank you. It was great being with you. She goes, Mike, you said you wanted pictures for your kids. Mike, I mean, she's ready to go out, like, she's got, like, 2 minutes. Mike, and she grabbed all these photos and gave them to me. That's the
man,
you know, so
yeah,
I could tell you about, hopefully, about 20 more people that, and I'm sorry, that's what came to mind. The first person that really influenced me was Richard Boone, but,
mm,
the classic character, and I was on a film that was never seen. Bushido played my first job, which is another one. But there's so many people, and, I feel like, it sounds like a cliche. I wanna thank Nathan Lane on stage, and Matthew was great too, Matthew Broderick, but the whole
mm.
cast. But Nathan was something you sat there and watched. Or the first time I did a reading, Eddie Bianchi asked me to do this thing while I was doing another play,
You
and
did the play you did with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, was that the
The
producers, or
Odd
did you
Couple. No, The Odd
oh, The
Couple.
Odd Couple, The
After
Odd
they did
Couple.
Producers, and,
Okay.
I remember doing this, stage reading the Ensemble Studio Theater did, and I came in, they wanted me to improvise. I was set in Rhode Island, and it's this Irish, uh, uh, character who had a, late night show. Well, there was this guy who was just phenomenal, and watched his energy, and the director told me, "Where do you see this guy?" And that no one knew him at the time, 1981, Ed Harris.
Oh, wow.
Great guy,
Man,
but you watched him and you go, "Wow, there's something special." So,
yeah, man.
and I
It
have a
it
lot of laughs on everything I do, by the way, usually. Mr. Mercedes I did, and all I did was have laughs.
well, it strikes
Direct
me,
producer.
you strike me as the type of guy, and I think it was interesting, my daughter and I, we did a tour at Warner Brothers studio, and it
Oh,
was
okay, yeah, I know that one. I had friends, run that, yeah.
yeah,
Let Make-A-Wishes with that.
yeah, and the cool thing about that is when we did it, she was really excited because the person who was our tour guide was someone who had been doing extra work for Warner Brothers
Great,
shows,
yeah.
and, she was mentioning how a lot of what happens is certain directors like you for certain things, and you end up getting cast in all the directors' things, and you strike me as the type of person who everybody just loves you, so of course they all just wanna have you come back and do your things, and obviously you're a great actor as well. Does it seem like
That's the same.
you tend to be the type of person where you just befriend everybody and you kinda make connections that way?
Do you know, there'd be things that I had the greatest times with, and it never, they love me when they see me, like, but I never work with the Farrellys again, and I don't sit there going, "Why would I?" No, you just say, you look at it, but I don't do it for that reason, to be their buddy and then exchange, I'm weird like that. Johnny Depp, who was so great to be with Timber, gave me his number 3 times. He gave it in New York to someone. My kids did not forgive me for that one, my daughters, but for some reason, I don't know if it's a blue collar mentality, a housing project thing. I didn't get Jim gave me his number, and Jeff would always say these great things about me. I hope that I'm not doing it so, hey, and actually, I'm too much the other way about, I don't want this guy to think I want anything from him. De Niro would speak well of me in other places. It's funny, but, yeah, I would get on other things, like Scorsese would exec produce things, and at the reunion, he was, in Taiwan doing this film, and he came on the screen and he was mentioning people that were there, and I went, "Wow, he's not gonna mention me." And the last thing he did was he laughed. We had a nice relationship. He laughed and he says, "And of course, Mike Starr." And he started laughing, and it's one of the greatest moments, I have to say, in the business for me. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I try to feel out things. It's weird if you're just on for 1 day or 2. Like, I did this thing, Sweetwater, and Paul Hip and I did it, and, all we did was laugh, and a lot of other wonderful people I met, and, yeah, sometimes people don't know how to take you feel it out. Jack Bender, the producer director of Mr. Mercedes, I started out with a few lines and this and that, but the character was scripted to be bigger. But once I was comfortable after a few days, I'd fool around. But I'd always check with him. I said, I don't want to disrupt the set. We still keep in touch. That's someone he
Yeah.
did so many things he did lost. But and they all say we want to do the right thing. We really want to do a thing with you again, and it does happen. I mean, it goes full circle with my friend Dan Laurie and people like that. And people ask me to do things. I try to give as much as possible. A lot of times they say you become the ringleader or the shop steward, like with the baseball players. Wilford Brimley said, "You're the leader of this pack. I need you to break the ice with Redford and this and that with the players." And uh, I guess it happens. I guess again, this is the way I've always been. The way I've been on a street corner or this and that, and working with kids. I I'm the baby of the family. I got to get away with a lot of stuff, and I don't know. It's like, yeah, again, you make connections, yeah, and you make
Yeah.
friendships, and it's Uta Hagen, I think, said actors again. Maybe she said something about highly paid or whatever migrant workers. I mean,
Yeah.
not to compare yourself to people that work so hard, but uh, you lose touch with people. There's still people I keep in touch with, but it's not like, when I see them, I go, "Oh shit, how long's it been?" I'd see someone like
Yeah.
Richard Kind and go up to him, and I have people you work with or you wind up now at these autograph conventions and you just laugh. But again, I don't know because I wasn't able to do like people say, "Oh, you get along with everyone. You're a real politician." This and that. I wasn't able to do a lot of the things of the people who play poker games. This and that. My focus, like I couldn't go like Cam Neal. We'd have these great events, but between my kids and my wife's schools and residency and everything, I would miss like events where people would invite you for this big, probably a few days, and I didn't want to be rude. I try to make benefits and everything, but yeah, a lot of my life was either. And later on, people would say, "You take an actor like Louis Lombardi, one of my best friends, and now he has his daughter's like 16 or 17. He goes, how did you do it?" And he'd say, "Now I see the way you were." And a lot of times I would go out, say my brother was living in Burbank in LA, and I'd get jobs or stay on my friend Gary's couch or whatever. My wife's at the University of Chicago,
Right.
and I'm going out on the couch, and my agent or manager would say, "Yeah, Mike's there," and
Yeah.
go out. But I guess it's really a good question. I'm sorry, I'm yapping too much, but I
No.
guess for some reason I didn't. I still have friends that are in the business and this and that, but it's not like, hey, I know Bob. Hey,
Yeah.
Bobby wants me to do this, and no, sometimes I'd ask you a Cusack, and he'd always not take credit for it, but he'd say, all of a sudden the cast director, I'd go in there, and there's casting directors that are very loyal to, and there's great people like Ellen Lewis and so many uh, wonderful cast, Claire Simon in Chicago, where they say, "Oh, you'd be perfect for this," and
Yeah.
I found myself sometimes either opening my mouth too much or saying stupid things or sometimes what you do is just perfect and they love you, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
try to be careful, but you don't wanna stifle your personality.
Sure. If you could give advice, like I said, my daughter is an aspiring
Yeah,
actress. What is some, a word of advice you would give to young people who want to follow in your footsteps?
you know, um, I think Charlie Rose asked Morgan Freeman one time, uh, everyone they'll say, "You need something to fall back on," and Morgan Freeman would say, "If you have something to fall back on, you will."
Yeah.
And I I try to say first perspective, and I used to say, "It's gotta be like oxygen to you," and I
Mm.
don't mean there are people 24/7 that are always on or like, "Hey, you know who this guy is?" And they'll tell me, and they mean well, "This person, I'm gonna go with them, I'm gonna play golf with them," and it works. But I think it's developing yourself and making yourself as hardworking as you can without like you don't want to ruin a a wonderful childhood or young people or any ages by being so obsessed um with the business. You don't want to do that too much. Does that make sense? You want a
Yeah.
healthy life, but you I remember when I thought I'd play football, my brother said to me, he didn't say, "What are you crazy or you nuts? You're not gonna do this and that." That one year he said, "Just enjoy it now." So I would tell people to really find the I know, 2 of my grandchildren, we were trying to do something they were interested in, it didn't get to be fun, just like even certain sports. If they're not fun, I tell people don't do it. I mean, not that you're not supposed to work hard. So I would one of my advice up front, and then this is before I would give business advice, I would speak at my friend Brian's classes in schools. And not only did I say enjoy this time now, but I would say I was lucky that I stayed a fifth year because I got my scholarship the first year. And I was lucky to go back. I went back to Dr. Miriam Toolin, who had directed in the group theater, maybe the Yiddish theater. She had done live TV. I would go back in our freshman class and I'd sit there because I didn't know how much I missed by being a clown or whatever, or being having your mind on different things, or am I going to get on the main stage? And I always say, and what I still Brian still coaches me, you go back to fundamentals. And
Mm.
it's people I know martial arts are very popular the last 30, 40 years, and people want to do all sorts of outrageous things or be really badass or whatever. But one of the things I learned from being very close to certain people who were interesting lives, whether it's from Korea, China, or whatever things. And the one thing that keeps coming back to me or learning about how the British train is fundamentals. Like I had a friend say, listen, if I really taught the way over in Korea, he said I'd have only about 3 or 4 people, they would send one thing for months, and
Mm.
and it was all about repetition. So with, I would say, your daughter now should she take classes?
She
Or
does, yeah, she's
great.
taking classes, and she's also very involved in the local community theater.
In the community theater. So what you do, again, try it. If you're not cast, sometimes don't take it personal. Take whatever you got. But what you do, you'd be surprised if you hear stories about people. They didn't all come from this very famous place or these brilliant people, which is great to do. But first of all, not get hung up in being competitive. Run your own race. First of all, don't be, oh, what's this person? Who's that over there? What are they getting? Uh, don't always compare yourself. But one of the things is to really use in a very positive way. I would tell people, I said, my friend Brian's here, taught 30 years, acted in so many great things. Use these people. I mean, if I had any regrets even about sports, is that I didn't go back and I did some, but I say, teach me this. Well, the same with acting. I had gotten married so young and had to support families and this and that, that I didn't get to go to someone like Stella Adler, who I wanted to. And I had a wonderful education at Hofstra, but I wanted to go. And my dad would say, "Oh no, you need to do this." Nah, I'm okay. I mean, I wanted to, but you were busy doing other things or working in various ways. One of the things I found is to take advantage of the luxury of being in this community, being taking classes. And I don't mean to you have to kiss ass with the teacher, but as much as you can be focused, when you hear these successful people, great athletes, great anything, astronauts, doctors, surgeons, you know that they were totally into. I've watched my wife many times. She could be sitting at a stoplight and then sewing something on the steering wheel, practicing. I mean, you have to be, and again, not obsessive that you don't know anyone else exists. I don't mean that, but on the other hand, all this stuff that's so hip now with yoga and everything about being present, which is great.
Mhm.
I mean, I realized that's why it took me a while. I even learned it from a Zen master. I realized why I loved acting so much. Not that someone goes, applause, because I was checking all that out. Like, oh, and you're great. I mean, that's all nice. Whereas my friend Kevin Hagen would say, I got past I wanted the money. I got past the novelty of being my neighbors recognizing me. But I think one of the things I love is because I'm such a flake, as you see, talking here and there, blah, blah, blah. Uh, too much decaffeinated tea today. But I want this to me is like a performance, and I want to give everything I can. Is that, first of all, and again, I should talk the business to you, but getting in a good program, but you'd be surprised how much the teachers know that may not be famous. You'd be, um, the actor on Breaking Bad. Now, why am I going to open his name? Has done all this brilliant work and stage.
Bryan
But
Cranston?
you hear Brian tell stories. I hear interviews with him, or you hear Jason Alexander. You hear Brian tell stories about. he wasn't in a famous place, how much his teachers influenced him, and maybe, I mean, it's things he may have not have expected to do, and like, let me give this a try. But some people just have, hopefully, a natural kid, and your daughter would have that, but a love and a desire and a passion, and to really enjoy it, but also to learn. I got, we were in American College Theater Festival. I did Three Penny Opera with that lady that I had mentioned that I met after jet practice, and we did well. I was with Robert Davi, my friend Lou Berger, and Davi's doing super for all these years, and I was starting to learn about singing. He's a phenomenal singer, but then I got, Steve Kaplan, a friend of mine, we had a thing that was started by Francis Ford Coppola, whatever, I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right. He was at Hofstra for a year or 2, and he started this thing called Spectrum, and it was all student run. I think my granddaughter was in something that was all students choreographed. I went out and saw in Illinois, and, it was, a chance for me, and I did Fiorello, and my family came, and friends, and I had to play one of the leads and do a soft shoe and sing solos, and they gave us it was all student directed and student, uh, uh, the orchestra, the conductor, everyone, but they were the top people, the wardrobe, everyone, and it was such a great learning experience, and being out there, we had 1,100 seat theater. I mean, we had smaller theaters too. I took, um, directors had directing classes, and I would act, do a scene with them, whatever. "Would you do this?" "Sure, sure." And the characters I'd never get to play, in
Yeah.
business, I got to play. So don't waste your time, I would say. And, there's
Mhm.
so many people waste their time partying and this and that, and they go, "Man, I did too much." I mean, it's alright to have a good time. I'm not trying to be a total but, you can be friendly and wonderful, and it's a nice social experience being in the show and what she's doing, and you make friends. But I would say to really try to learn, because then they sent me to Sabina Rapp, who was a survivor from World War II. She was an opera teacher, and they let me go work with her vocally. So I was doing this for free, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But I learned. I tried to learn. That was one of the and actually my mentor, Dr. Miriam Tulin, I went through a period, maybe my junior year, I did 5 years. I was kinda sloughing off, not taking care of myself. And, and this isn't cool. And sat me down. She said, "Geez, you were writing, you were doing all this stuff, and you, she was trying to inspire me, maybe do a special project, this and that." Said, "But you haven't been doing much this last semester, and I just got to tell you straight out that if you don't start really getting it together," and not that I was a bad guy or trouble, college, this and that. Sometimes it was a period, maybe a semester, and she said, "Then we take away your scholarship." And it was like someone took a bucket of ice water and poured it on my head, and I went, "Okay." And then
Yeah.
I was out and doing everything I possibly could to, um, to learn and to be good. And it was easy enough for me because it's so much fun. I wasn't learning surgery or this and that. I wasn't, working in the ER or something or whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, not that
It's
that's bad, but you know what I mean? You can
yeah.
have joy, and it's all you say that's one thing my wife never, would try to say something some vocation is more superior than the others, and actually from especially Dumb and Dumber, things like that, I've gotten to do very special things in, hospitals and things like that, or people's in their lives or whatever in a silly way. And you asked me before about it was a perfect thing. Can you imagine? I'm going to I have Dr. Oz or something. I bring him to maybe Scream of Mad Dog Gloria, or I go to the um, the hospital and there's the chief of surgery or something like that going, "Hey, what's Robert De Niro?" Then I go on a set with Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro says, "Hey, so what Joanne do? What she do today?" And she was a first year, and I said, and not like a jerk, he would say, and he'd be really so human, so interested. He'd ask me, he said, "Yeah, my friend's a neurosurgeon. I got the one." He said, "What's she doing?" I said, "Well, she's working on these transplants." Hobbs, he goes, "Wow." There'd be this genuine interest, of, so the 2 worlds really worked much better, and
Yeah.
she just went back to a reunion. There were maybe 5 women surgeons, and it was a young woman, Korean American lady, who told me how inspiring my wife Joanne was when she was a chief resident, and how hard and tough she was, and fanatic about, doing everything right for the patients and everything. Said, boy, it inspired me. But this guy that they were all terrified, this chief surgeon, right, and still a big time thing. I was talking to one of the doctors I used to hang out with or whatever, and he came over. He goes, "Let me tell you a story about Mike Starr." Said, I was the head of surgery at Columbia Presbyterian, and my 11-year-old could care less. But I come back with a poster of Dumb and Dumber signed by Mike Starr, and I became a hero." So you have it in perspective, you laugh,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but I think it made it in some ways a lot easier, and made me focus, even more that I had to get work. I had a
yeah,
kid and then eventually, then three, that you were focused, that you wanted to get jobs, not screw anyone else or compete, but you wanted to be the best you could be.
yeah, and that's
That makes
interesting that
sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and what I like about what you said, I like the part that you said about you can have a good time, but don't waste your time, when it comes to partying and stuff, because, man, I've seen so many people who were incredibly talented just
You got it.
waste their talent by getting too involved in the scene rather
Yep.
than the actual work, right? And
Do you know what
you
the upfronts are? That's
no,
when they
what's up?
announce series, and I only make had to make one of them because I was busy working at times, but they would have these events, say in New York, and the agency would everyone would come, and these it could be from Idaho or something. They'd have the local affiliates get up,
Mm,
and the head of, like, say, NBC would say, "This is the advertising dollar. This is what we can do. This for you. Da da da. This is what we're doing, and these are the new shows." And they'd introduce people. I can't tell you. I mean, you hear about the Academy Awards and all these parties. I can't tell you. There'd be like 5 or 6 parties, and if you didn't control yourself, I can't tell you. Young actors, agents, assistants that would just embarrass themselves being drunk, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And they'll put up what is it they say in sports? We put up to the talent till it, outweighs the benefits or whatever. They'll put up with
yeah,
bullshit with players and actors, and either sometimes, unfortunately, they die or they after a while, if someone's a total prick, they say, "We don't need this shit anymore,"
yeah.
and
When I
it's
when
a
I
discipline's important is what I'm saying.
it is, I remember one time, I used to promote pro wrestling events, and when
Oh, really?
I did, yeah, yeah.
I worked with
With
Big John Studd in Hong Kong with Jackie Chan.
oh, nice. Big John Studd was a
1985,
great
before my
one.
wife started med school, I took the job. I didn't know I had to do a stunt and get blown through a pinball machine. Geez, so you did that.
Yeah, so I was running pro wrestling events, and there was this guy, I'll never forget him, I won't name his name because he'd love if I would, but he was so talented and so incredibly talented and just
Wow.
charisma out of every pore, just very good. But man, he was just so hard to work with, and he just was such a difficult personality that at some point it was just like, "You know what? I just, I don't need it. It's not worth it, right?
There you
The
go.
headache isn't worth it, and it's so sad because what a waste of talent. And I played basketball with people, I played basketball in high school. One of my teammates ended up going to the NBA, and he was real good, but there were other guys out there, and even him to some extent where, being difficult really hampered a lot of things in
Oh
their
my god.
careers. And it's okay, in my view, it's okay for you to, have a very strong position or a strong moral code or voice an opinion in a
Right.
way that, to be very, assertive with what you feel. It's another thing to cause problems.
Oh, that's
And
huge.
yeah,
Huge. Yeah.
and so, it's interesting because it sounds like with you, you didn't you may have had opinions on things like you mentioned, "Hey, I don't like these certain roles, I'm gonna pull out," or whatever.
Yeah, very
Uh,
rarely. I mean,
yeah,
it would, but it was
but
really they understood, and it was a moral that's something I couldn't live with.
and then I gotta imagine also that after a while, you've worked on so many things that almost your reputation kinda precedes you, right?
Hopefully, and I've done some terrible things. I mean, played parts with, they weren't exactly the nicest murderers or whatever, but it's funny. Charisma, by the way, the first time I heard that word was my brother saw me in the high school thing. I left that. He goes, "You've got what's called charisma." I said, "What the hell is that?" But
Yeah.
I mean, but but I had I should tell you the Bodyguard, the first week I was on the set of the Bodyguard, Jim Wilson was a producer and partners with Kevin, I think, at the time. And he came up to me and he said, "You know, it was between you and another person." I said, "Yeah, I heard." And the director I'd worked with, I said, "Yeah, he's wonderful, actor, but he's a really great friend and a great guy." And he wasn't saying he was trouble on the set by any means. But what he said to me, to this day, I don't know who it was, but I had just done Mad Dog and Glory and it hadn't come out yet. He said, "We checked on you and everyone in Chicago." And I don't know if it was Steve Jones, the producer, co-direct with John. It did Portrait of a Serial Killer. He said, but he said we heard things. It could have been De Niro. We heard so much about you on the set, your behavior, and
Mhm.
it's not like I try to get to be like, but I certainly would rather people when I show up at the set or leave say, "That was great being with him," rather than hearing the stories. Because listen, makeup and hair, I mean, I may be silly sometimes in saying things, whatever, but makeup and hair and grips and electric, they all know. And I was very lucky to have my friend Smitty, a Cockney electric. When I first broke into the business at film, I knew so many crew guys,
Mhm.
and I had a very, hopefully, blue collar way, but you don't take yourself seriously. I mean, I've seen actors who just think they're the God's gift, you know?
Oh, that doesn't you don't even have to be famous for that. I mean, like you said, going even you get back into pro wrestling at the lowest levels, I mean, you'll have guys
Really?
you'll be wrestling in front of 100 people, and a guy will be like, "I can't." I tell this story all the time. We were in this little town that I have family in called Gridley, California, doing a fundraiser. Gridley has a
Gridley, huh?
grand total of about 4,000 people. And so, wrestling was a big deal there. We were having a pretty decent show coming up, and
Wow.
this guy comes up to me, and he's one of the tag champions, and I go, "Okay, you guys are gonna drop the belts tonight to these guys, and, I want you to take the pin. I want you to take the fall." And he goes, "Oh, I can't lose in Gridley." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" You know? And he goes, "I can't lose in Gridley." And I go, "What do you mean you can't lose in Gridley?" He goes, "Well, I'm the champion in another town, and this town's like 30 minutes away." And I go, "You do understand that you didn't actually win this title, right? It's a" like, I go, "You do understand, like, this is not a" it's pro wrestling. They're in on it, and he wouldn't lose. And it wasn't like it was we're not working the WWE, and I just and so, yeah,
What
you
a
don't even
great
have to
story.
yeah, you don't have to be famous to have an ego, apparently.
Oh, no, I
But
mean, so I'm talking then they weren't all famous. Some of the people, I almost wish I had the confidence of some of these people, the way they thought they were
e
God's gift. I mean, I wouldn't wanna be a jerk off, but, it's funny, I when I worked on Sweetwater, there was a second AD, so second, but he was only working in the office, and he called me and said, "Mike, I just wanna tell you, there was something about the call time or we had a wardrobe thing." He said, "I don't know if you remember me, we worked this and that," and this is self-serving, this story, but it's to the point. He said, "When, I just want you to know, I don't know if I can get to the set, but when when they look on the call sheet and see your name, that we know we're in for a nice time and a good time and a good
yeah,
situation." And that's nice because you get it done. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to be Chuckles the Clown on the set, you know what I mean? Like,
sure,
has to
sure.
perform. I mean, Jeff was, quiet, but, I mean, he was great to work with people, and, and Jim was Jim, outrageous, but I'm not saying everyone's gotta stand up and go, "Hey, you wanna hear this story?" But it's also a kindness or an appreciation, and also not taking your work, whatever you wanna call the craft or the art, seriously and being prepared, but not
Mhm.
taking yourself so seriously that the world has to bow, "You can't look in my eyes" stuff or whatever, you know? Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does
And
make sense.
appreciating what everyone else does there, and and it's
Yeah.
a collaborative effort, and,
My partner at my law firm, who's my mentor, he's the one who got me hired and all that. He once told me at the beginning of my career, because I was asking him, like, "All right, how do I have a good career?" And he just told me, he goes, "Just work hard and the money will come." Right?
that's it.
And he's like, and that he's like, "Just do right by people, work hard, and the money will come." And I think that
I
that's
love that. I love that
yeah,
advice.
and
That's
and
kind of
and
what I was getting at before, I hope, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and that's what it sounds like with you. The thing that I love about you and why I was so excited to have you on here is because, you are in my view, the type of actor that people should aspire to be, and that you are
Wow.
consistently getting well, you're consistently
Thank you.
getting work in great movies and working consistently and doing these things, and maybe you're not always the superstar role, the lead role, but you're in everything. You know what I mean?
I tell
You
people I'm the 5th guy on the right.
Yeah. But the thing is you're consistently getting work and you're there's so few guys, like, there's a lot of people who have memorable roles in a film. There's very few like you who have memorable roles in multiple films that are almost generational.
I
Uh,
appreciate it.
and it goes to show what kind of obviously, what kind of respect you have in the movie in the film business that you
I
have been able
appreciate
to
that.
do that. It's really
You know,
it's really surprising.
that means a lot. I mean, uh, I just did this whole they got this great idea in Atlanta, Georgia. We were on a refurbished bus. Me and my friend Chris Cerrone, who played the young Henry Hill, he got me involved in it. And you ate and talked. But one of the things I tried to communicate with people was that, people think of Scorsese as the guy who sits there and da da da, and
Mhm.
I tell people to watch documentaries. He laughed all the time with me. He'd yell out something to me and test me on a trivia question. "I bet my son knows this," and we'd laugh. We talk about
Uh-huh.
early Jackie Gleason and Art Carney things, not even The Honeymooners, and he'd come up and he'd do a whole funny line with me, and we would laugh, but, he had the details and he was specific, who could say, and the biggest pressure and one of my biggest thrills is that he said, first he said, "I want you to go talk to Bob about the scene." I was like,
Mm.
"What?" And we did, and of course, De Niro was great, and his way of making you comfortable and sitting there, he goes, "What do you think?" I mean, he lets you feel, you're part of it now, like, "Hey, you know who I am," and this and that, and he we talked it out, and then I laughed with him, and I was imitating Frank Silvero, who Frankie Carbone, and who was in Godfather 2 with him too, and we were laughing and talking. I said, "This is all I know. I'm not claiming to know, organized crime, things like that," but we laughed, and then when I came to the set, there were certain lines, that Nick Pileggi wrote the book, which I got the whole source of what I did in that scene, uh, along with Frank and then with this detective, and built this character, hopefully, and worked through myself, my own energy. But uh, I went up to him, I said, "Yeah, I know Nick wrote." He said, "What is it?" And I said, "Well, I read Nick's book," and it's funny, the line says, because they have to change things in films to make things work if they don't have the time and, just embellish a little. I said, "About the alarms," and he goes, "Yeah." I said, "No, that was the beauty of it." I was just like my character said, "There were no alarms." He goes, "All right, Mike, well, just say whatever you know." Scorsese just told me that I had free reign, and with
Yeah.
some restrictions, and there's Robert De Niro giving me softballs like, "What's the security?" And he was an air cargo supervisor, but I said, "What security you looking at? I'm the midnight date man. I'm the commandant." All this came out because when we rehearsed and we did things because Ray Liotta, God rest his soul, and Robert De Niro, and there's Scorsese, and knowing the crew and people really, it was probably one of the most relaxed I've ever been on a set, having to be this kind of energy. I mean, wonderful experiences, like I said, that I've been lucky to have. But I mean, as far as having to improvise, which I learned from Barry Levinson on A Natural, learned a lot about the parameters of it. And I, I, I just, I'm there to have fun, but also, in the '60s, they used to say, be part of the solution, not the problem.
Yeah.
And how can I help? And it's not about, me. And I hate when someone thinks that, one time I was asking this guy I worked with so much before, and he's saying, "Didn't we have a great time?" And I wanted to make sure that I was sitting in the right place. I said, and he was a TV guy, uh, and I thought, oh, he loved it. He said, "Hey, remember those shots we had in Toronto?" And I was doing this sitcom, and again, I can understand him thinking like that. I just wanted to know if I was in the shot, so I didn't, I wanted to know where to sit and, what is, miking, whatever. I just wanted to do the right thing. I like to collaborate, and I love talking to cinematographers and cameras to the point I'm a goofball, but I asked him something. He said, "I know, you're worried about your close-up, right? Don't worry, you'll get yours." And I went, "Da da da da," and it's very few times I have an experience like that. I went, "Oh, Lord." I said, "No, no, no," and but, but it's I think I mean, this means a lot what you're saying to me. I think it's, some of it, people have naturally,
Mhm.
and I love the fact that even Richard Kind said to me, "I didn't know you trained and did all this stuff." If they think you're natural at it, that means you're real, or they think you're an ex, cop, mob guy, or and God forbid saying that, combat veteran or something like that. I hate when actors fake that, or when they say, "Oh no, we did this training. We're like real Marines." I said, "No, no, no, you're not. No, you're not,
Yeah,
because we're portraying whatever, mob guys, but you're portraying something to the best of your ability, and
yeah,
but I that's nice because I want to have fun. It's not like I want to be the class clown or the cut up. If it doesn't fit in the work situation, I don't do it. And sometimes I'm one of those people that's unintentionally funny. If that sounds
yeah,
good. One time,
right.
John Norton, the director of Mad Dog, kept moving me, um, and he was telling people where to move. But when you're a big guy, people do these. So he meant well, but he was trying to show me where to stand and move me. And finally, I went, "John, you treat me like a Disney animal in the '40s, I'm about
Yes.
to lay down wires." And then De Niro started laughing, almost said laughing Cape Fear, not that I was trying to cause trouble, make him laugh. And I see an opening, you encouraged me to laugh. I started went, "Well, I feel like Ali Liana. Oh, he didn't like being on the desert." And now Liana, I started doing this, and he lost it laughing. And it's okay to tell the story. And I mean that it happened. It was in public, so I'm not telling any bad story about the neighbor, but it's laughing, and I apologize to John later, but sometimes I didn't mean to at first. I said, "Geez, what are you doing to me?" And all 4 of us, all the boys and my mom would have these, and my dad was more quiet, but we'd have these analogies, and you get it from the neighborhood too, but no one could come up with things like my brother Bo, with analogies, and I did, and sometimes it can get you in trouble, by being and you just say one line or something like that, and you didn't mean to be sarcastic, but you're saying something, you go, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that." But other times the person loses it and they love having you there,
Yeah,
Hopefully that's an important thing. And back to with your daughter, again, learning, but also it doesn't hurt. I mean, of course, you're supervising and this and that. I mean, where I don't know the town you are eventually may have to consider going to a serious theater training if you see that she has that gift and then she feels she has it. That um, I hate to tell people don't go to university or don't go to university. I know people that work either way, and it's a great part of life. I mean, I went through a university program because my brother conned me into it. It was great, and I did a lot of things in school, and I learned a lot, and then had to relearn. My freshman year, the first week we went out, I did a monologue, and Dr. Tulin, Miriam Tulin said, "All right, Michael here, by the way, he doesn't need us." And I'm like sitting there going, "What?" She goes, "He's what they call an he could work in film right now. I directed in film and TV, and he doesn't need us right now. He's just," and I'm sitting there, "What the hell am I doing here?" And, and I, and she said, "But he's insisting he wants to be in the theater. So that's what we're going to teach him, how to be on stage." And I had to learn to adjust when I started seriously trying to act because I feel like I was always playing to the last row in the upper deck, and
mhm,
I saw myself on screen. I took a $10 commercial acting class, said, "What the hell am I doing?" And sometimes I can be it's all right to be energetic and big when it fits, but sometimes it doesn't work being broad. And then sometimes it can be too much the other way, and
sure,
I was just thinking of people, special people that I got to work with and got to be friends with, like John Turturro. Now
mhm,
he's one of a kind, and you look at his energy, but he is so special and so real and so. I worked with him in a Shakespeare play. I mean, he had a notebook. He had his lines here, and each night we say, "Mike, we got to do this," and when you see the focus of someone like that. So that's what I'm saying. Again, I'm not asking your daughter to change her personality. Eventually, see, in the business when I started, you got in theater, you got seen in showcases, and now it's so digital and this and that. that they wanna see footage of you. I don't know if these casting people, the younger ones or these agent or anyone produces even go to plays anymore. I don't know.
Sure.
Someone gets noticed, you do something really solid, and they say, "Wait, we gotta go see this person. I heard this person's great."
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
a matter of back to what your mentor said, of really doing the work and getting seen and having not you don't have to curry the favor of a teacher. "Can you help me?" Whatever. But when they see something, like with my wife when, she wasn't even in med school yet, and, maybe undergrad, but working to support a but working in the world, that a couple of these older doctors said, "No, no, you're gonna do this, and, no, you should really go to med school and let's this, and I'll write a letter for you because of her work ethic and the accomplishments and the work you put into it. You want people to see you." I mean, John Turturro wound up, after undergrad going to Yale, drama school, but it wasn't like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this so now they'll take me seriously," or whatever. You know what I mean? We worked at Yale Rep together. It was, he always worked. I'm glad I'm picking him out because I didn't mention him before. We had a lot of laughs together, but also, I worked a small part on him when he did his film about his family and his dad and everything. But again, it's the work ethic. And I
Yeah.
think when you work with, you see like Brits who don't take themselves, they're so much fun to be with. But when they were there and you realize the training they went through, I'm not saying Americans don't train at Juilliard. And in fact, I was talking to some Juilliard people. Sometimes you get, that great movie the great actor did about the drummer in the Juilliard, he's, oh God, I'm going up on his name now. I'm so sorry. Um, about the drum teacher and this and that, and he played the teacher that was just brutal on the guy, but the guy
Yeah.
did well. There's a fine line of some people can in sports swimming. Swimming. I mean, they can have nervous breakdowns. Or you find out things later on, like I never did this, and it got too much, so obsessive. Does that make sense? So there's a
Yeah.
that's why I say it has to be fun. You know who I'm talking about? He's on the I don't know, on that commercial, he's a great actor.
I don't know what movie you're
J.K.
talking about.
Simmons, J.K. Simmons,
Oh,
you
okay.
know
Okay.
you know, and he plays a teacher that's really, uh, outrageous, and the young actor in it, I can't even remember the name, but, you see that. And I work with, Irish actor Gabriel Byrne. I tell you, Miller's Crossing is one of the best experiences I ever had. You think of the talent on that,
Oh,
including John and the things I had
yeah.
to do with Coen Brothers, all we did was laugh, and I would do cartoon things, and I would say, uh, I would say, "Hey, let me show you." We were in the 1930s. I said, "It's the 1930s Sears catalog," right? And I would do the poses that the models were having it like that. And they're about to do a
Uh-huh.
scene where I'm supposed to kill someone with a dragging a dead body, but right before I'm going, "Right here." So the next time the, Coen Brothers and they were up at the Academy Award with Frances McDormand and everything, they saw me in a place and they all went to me. The both of them went, "Mike, how's this pose?" It's like it's fun. That's the way my
Yeah.
brother was too, on sets, and then if we're together, forget about it. We played Twin Killers and Hoodlum. Nothing but fun, but the product on the screen people liked, again,
Yeah.
you don't stand there before seeing someone's gotta do something about a death or a horror and go, "Hey, you wanna hear this one? Hey," it's not that, so you try to gauge it and then try to give distance to people and respect. I mean, I didn't walk up to De Niro the first day and say, "Hey, you wanna hear this one?" No, you knew you give people their space and people are different. I mean, Whitney Houston, I had so much fun with her to the point Kevin would come in, we'd be laughing so much. It's like, "What are you up to today?" I mean, it was so good.
Well, that's
I,
that was my childhood crush right there, Whitney Houston.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
really? So,
Loved
my
her.
daughter they all came out at one point. My daughter was 8 or 9, right? And Whitney took her in her private trailer, and they did makeup on her, and she
Oh,
would laugh. She would always and tell me she'd call me homeboy. She said, "You come from the same background as me. I trust you," and we would laugh, and I would tell stories from my friend Frank Renzulli, who wrote the greatest, they say some of the best episodes on Sopranos, and he got to visit set, and they laughed. He was from a project in Boston, and, uh, and Whitney, I'll tell you how comfortable I got. The first day, I'd be like serious, and Kevin would give me this great advice about my character, and he just everything he said was perfect, and the director was wonderful, Mick Jackson, but Kevin would craft it, and he just knows he knows what works. I mean, I don't know what goes on with now, I haven't seen him in years, but he knows he just I learned a lot from him, and, so the first week I'm trying to be I said, "Now we gotta do a stunt, we gotta do this, good fights and da da da." Now cut to it's the end of the run, and we're in Florida, and now I'm the lunatic, and now I can just be, "Ah," I'm with Bill Cobbs and Gary Kemp, we're just laughing all the time. Well, there's a scene where it's supposed to still be in California where Whitney goes out shopping, and Kevin has to come in and say, "No, no, no, Rachel, no, you're not supposed to be in public, and come on, Tony, you know better," whatever, and he crafted my character and made sure to always insert so that my character grew and became lovable and professional and everything, and it all worked. He'd have little of the suggestions, but anyway, before he comes in, we're there, we're doing the scene, everyone's sitting around. Out of nowhere, this is the lunatic I am. Take chances. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I went, "Now, everybody alive, for the first time ever, Whitney Houston and her friend Mike Starr will sing for you," right? I'm kidding. So
Okay.
people think it's over. I'm joking, right? And I said, "Whitney, fly me to the moon." I started singing, right? So you think the joke's over. Whitney Houston and her friend Robin, you hear about, I wish I could get this video because she would film behind the scenes stuff. Whitney Houston starts full out performing with me. I could
Wow.
say that happened. She went, "That's right, Mike, stop. Let me know." And now we're dancing together and we're doing it and the whole place goes crazy. I didn't do it, "Oh, let me make people," it's just I'm a nut,
Yeah,
and I was
that's awesome.
comfortable with her. And she was so wonderful. And then Kevin comes in and says, "What are you up to now?" He comes in.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, listen, Mike, I've taken a lot of your time, and I really
Oh, it's a
appreciate it.
pleasure. No, I've taken too much of your time, but
Yeah,
if
but,
it's hopefully some of it's usable and
no,
helpful. And
this has been fantastic, and let me just say, to everybody who's listened, I'm sure anybody who's listened to this has seen you in movies. This has been awesome. You should subscribe, it's because we these are the types of, episodes that I really cherish, so I really appreciate
you're
it,
great.
Mr.
You're
Starr.
a great interviewer and made me feel so comfortable, and I know I talk too much, but I would tell your daughter that, whatever age she's at, 3 years from now, it may completely change what she wants to be, but to go for it completely, and love it, and then maybe you look into if you wanna do so-called higher university programs, whether they're in LA, Chicago, New York, or whatever, or anywhere, but really solid situations if they depending on what kind of education you want to have, but eventually but some things you get seen and maybe like they do in sports, maybe you have to video it to send to people or
Yeah,
when you're in also if she was looking to act at all, I tell people whatever you're near, like for instance, we have Chapman here, a great school in many ways, but also in film or places you just go, "Hey, do you need anyone for free?" This is what I tell actors, so it may not fit for your daughter, but I tell actors, go into um, these film schools or whatever, or universities and say, "Do you need this?" I tell people in their 60s to do it. They don't have anyone like you. This way you get footage, but these people are going to be the directors a few years later. These
yeah,
students, and it
yeah,
turned out, whether it's Spike Lee or anyone who I've worked with a lot who was great. And that's what I would advise. But again, to develop it, have a good time and really develop your, I'm sure with she's a wonderful person and you're a wonderful guy that develop your spirit and your character and really enjoy. And there'll be ups and downs and we have failures like in baseball when they say 3 out of 10 times you're great if you get a hit. I mean,
yeah.
there's so much, and you just not take
Well,
things personally, but work.
yeah, I've told her and other people when they talk to me about because 'cause I've been successful in a lot of different things I've done in my
Yes,
life,
it sounds like it.
and
Yeah,
I tell her, and other people, I said, I would just tell you don't be married to the end result, be married to the journey." So,
that's great.
because
Wait,
I was like, me, I'm a by trade, I'm a partner at a personal injury law firm. If you would have told me when I walked into law school that I would end up working in personal injury, I would have said, "I'm not gonna go." Right? I was like, "There's no point." And, I thought I was gonna be a prosecutor, and I could now I'm in this spot, and I coulda never imagined doing anything else, and so
Isn't that
it's
something?
yeah, and
Yeah.
so it's like, you're y
Like I said,
when
my
I
wife was a musician when I met her.
yeah, and so I said, I was like, my if as long as you have a success mindset and you work really, really hard, it's probably gonna look way different than you expected, but it's probably even gonna be better,
And don't
right?
you
And
think
so
it's also huge? I mean, now people quote Bruce Lee, who was great, but it's stuff from thousands of years ago, East, West, whatever, about flowing and water. I mean, I think one of the big things is you have to be malleable and flexible and open to things, not
totally.
like, geez, I really don't. Wow, look at these people. I don't know if this is what I want to do, but geez, they paid me to, or whatever. We're going through school for this, and I think you have to know sometimes to switch gears if you have to. And what's crazy is when I would go speak at my friends, 'cause I have friends, a friend just lost. He was like, what's going to be, he was a year or two behind me. He's going to be one of the top actors. He wound up becoming an agent. And
Yeah,
he was very intelligent. And this, you may be a casting director, you may do whatever, or be in a whole different world.
right,
But
right.
it's all valuable. The training and the work ethic is all valuable. It's all transferable. I mean, you know better than me. I mean, you've been in different things, and you realize that work ethic that you pick up, whether whatever, it could be in sports. You look, even if I look back, I said, "Well, I'm glad I really worked hard, so I could have worked harder here at that, but that's alright, but I did put in the time." You gotta, what do they say? Put in the work, you
Yeah,
know, and it all
absolutely.
comes out, and look at you. I mean, and again, it's a lot of times being flexible and creative,
Yeah. Oh,
switching gears.
100%. Creative minds are the ones that win, for sure. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, well, Mike, it's been a pleasure, and,
I
everybody
hope to
make
see you again.
definitely.
You don't have to pay
Uh,
for it. I'll come back and visit anytime, and, uh,
right on.
feel free to get my number or anything like that, because 'cause I'll send you a great picture we were at this sports convention, and a guy came up to me and he said, "I got a great story for you." So you usually, there's a lot of people, first respond, different people say, you know, again, you're honored that they care. But he came back, he said, "My daughter works in the photo booth. She's in her early 20s, and, he said she works in the photo booth here, but 20 something years ago, it was my wife's first year after years and years of training. We were in Chicago." He said, "And your wife helped save my daughter's life, was in on the surgery." So I took a photo with her and sent it to my wife. And those are some of the most beautiful stories. And you say, okay, these are the things. And now she wants to take a picture with this big dopey actor, that's great. So yeah,
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, yeah.
anything. Yeah.